What happens when Hollywood's biggest night show host thinks he can humiliate a guest on live television? It only took 34 seconds of one snarky comment for Jimmy Kimmel to completely destroy his own reputation and prove that some celebrities think they're untouchable. The lights were blazing hot in the studio. Mark Wahlberg walked onto that stage like he owned the place, which, honestly, he should have. The man had just finished promoting his latest action movie, and everyone knew he was there to talk about his craft, his family, and maybe drop a few laughs for the audience. But Jimmy Kimmel had other plans. "So Mark, welcome back to the show," Kimmel said, that fake smile plastered across his face like he was doing Mark some kind of favor. "I gotta ask, how does it feel being Hollywood's most overpaid tough guy?" The audience went quiet. You could hear a pin drop. Mark's jaw tightened, but he kept his cool like the professional he is. "Jimmy, I'm here to talk about the movie. The crew worked really hard on this project." But Kimmel wasn't having any of it. He leaned back in that stupid chair of his, acting like he was some kind of comedy king. "Oh, come on, Mark. Everyone knows you just show up, flex a little, say a few lines, and walk away with $20 million. Must be nice living that easy life." Mark's eyes narrowed. This wasn't playful banter anymore. This was a direct attack. Easy life? You want to talk about easy? Try getting up at 4 in the morning every day, training for months, doing your own stunts while some people sit behind a desk making jokes about other people's work. The temperature in that room just shot up 10 degrees. Kimmel's face changed. He wasn't expecting Mark to fire back like that. Whoa, somebody's getting a little defensive," Kimmel said, trying to play it off like he was still in control. "I'm just saying, some of us had to work our way up the hard way. Not everyone gets handed movie roles because they have nice muscles." That was it. That was the moment Jimmy Kimmel crossed a line he should never have crossed. Mark sat forward in his chair, and you could see the fire building in his eyes. "Handed to me? Are you serious right now? Do you know what I was doing when I was 15 years old? I was on the streets trying to survive while you were probably in some fancy college somewhere learning how to make fun of people for a living." The audience was dead silent. Even the camera operators were holding their breath. This wasn't going according to anyone's script. Kimmel tried to laugh it off, but his voice cracked a little. "Hey, I'm just trying to have some fun here. It's all jokes, Mark. Relax." "Relax? You invite me on your show, and then you sit there and disrespect everything I've worked for? You think because you have a microphone and a studio audience that gives you the right to tear people down?" Mark's voice was getting louder, but he wasn't yelling. He was speaking with the kind of controlled intensity that makes people really listen. "I've been acting for over 20 years. I've produced movies. I've built businesses. I've tried to give back to my community. And you want to sit there and tell me I don't deserve what I've earned?" Kimmel was squirming now. His whole smug attitude was crumbling right there on live television. "Look, I didn't mean..." "No, you meant exactly what you said," Mark cut him off. "You thought you could bring me on here and make me look like some dumb musclehead for your audience to laugh at. But here's the thing, Jimmy. I didn't come from Hollywood royalty. I didn't have connections or rich parents. Everything I have, I fought for." The silence in that studio was deafening. You could see people in the audience shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some were nodding along with Mark. Others looked shocked that someone was actually standing up to their precious host. Kimmel tried one more time to regain control. Okay, let's just move on to the movie. Tell us about..." "No," Mark said firmly. "We're not moving on. You started this conversation, so let's finish it. You want to talk about the hard way? I was arrested multiple times as a kid. I made mistakes, real mistakes that hurt people, and I've spent my entire adult life trying to make up for that. While you were making jokes about celebrities, I was learning how to be a better person." The passion in Mark's voice was undeniable. This wasn't some rehearsed Hollywood speech. This was real emotion coming from a real place. "I work 16-hour days when I'm on set. I study scripts until 2 in the morning. I train with real fighters and real cops to make sure I'm giving audiences something authentic. And you want to call that easy?" Kimmel was completely out of his depth now. His writers hadn't prepared him for this. His usual sarcastic comebacks weren't working. "Mark, I think you're taking this a little too seriously." "Too seriously? My work is my life. The people I work with, the stories we tell, the audiences who pay their hard-earned money to see these movies. That's serious to me. What's not serious is sitting behind a desk making cheap shots at people who are actually out there creating something." The camera kept rolling, catching every word, every expression. This was becoming something nobody had ever seen before on late-night television. "You know what the difference is between you and me, Jimmy?" Mark continued, his voice steady and powerful. When When I fail, when I don't deliver what people expect, there are real consequences. Movies lose money, people lose jobs, fans lose faith. But you? You can say whatever you want, tear down whoever you want, and tomorrow night you'll be right back here doing the same thing to someone else. Kimmel looked like he wanted to be anywhere else in the world. His hands were shaking slightly as he reached for his coffee mug. You want to know what's really easy, Jimmy? Mark's voice cut through the tension like a blade. What's easy is hiding behind comedy. What's easy is pretending that tearing people down is just entertainment. Kimmel set his coffee mug down with shaking hands. He was trying to maintain that late-night host composure, but cracks were showing everywhere. Mark, I think we should probably take a commercial break. No breaks, Mark said, leaning forward. You wanted to have this conversation on live television, so let's have it. You think I don't know what you really think about actors like me? You think we're all just pretty faces with no substance? The audience was completely captivated now. Some people had their phones out, recording every second of this historic meltdown. I've been in this business long enough to know the difference between someone who respects the craft and someone who just sees us as punchlines, Mark continued. And right now, you're showing everyone exactly which one you are. Kimmel tried to laugh, but it came out as more of a nervous wheeze. Come on, Mark, you're being way too sensitive here. It's just comedy. People expect me to roast the guests a little. Roast? Mark's eyebrows shot up. Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're just being mean for the sake of being mean. There's a difference between comedy and cruelty, Jimmy. The host was visibly sweating now under those hot studio lights. His usual confidence was completely gone. Look, if I offended you, I apologize. That wasn't my intention. Your intention? Mark shook his head. Your intention was to make me look stupid so your audience would laugh. Your intention was to boost your own ego by putting down someone who's actually accomplished something. Don't insult my intelligence by pretending otherwise. You could see the producers off camera frantically gesturing, trying to figure out how to handle this situation. But Mark wasn't done. You know what bothers me most about this? It's not even about me. It's about all the young actors, the ones just starting out, who have to sit in chairs like this and let people like you mock their dreams just to get their projects promoted. Kimmel was squirming like a fish on dry land. He kept looking toward the wings, probably hoping someone would rescue him from this disaster. I've been fortunate enough to make it in this business, so I can sit here and defend myself, Mark said, his voice growing stronger. But what about the kid from Boston or Chicago or wherever, who works 3 jobs just to afford acting classes? What happens when they sit across from you and you decide their story isn't worth respecting? The power in Mark's words was undeniable. He was speaking truth to power in front of millions of people. Mark, I really think you're overreacting. Overreacting? Mark stood up from his chair. The entire studio went silent. Let me tell you what overreacting looks like. Overreacting would be me walking over there and showing you what a real tough guy actually does. But I'm not going to do that because I'm a professional. Kimmel's face went white. He was clearly terrified that Mark might actually come across that desk. Instead, I'm going to sit here and explain to you and everyone watching why what you're doing is wrong, Mark said, settling back into his chair with controlled authority. This industry is hard enough without people in positions of power using their platforms to tear others down. The silence stretched on for what felt like forever. Finally, Kimmel found his voice again. Okay, I hear what you're saying. Maybe I came on a little strong with the jokes. A little strong? Mark laughed, but there was no humor in it. Jimmy, you basically called me a talentless fraud on national television. That's not coming on strong. That's character assassination. Kimmel was trapped. Every word out of his mouth was making things worse. I didn't mean it that way. Then what way did you mean it? Mark challenged. Because I'm sitting right here. Look me in the eye and tell me what you really meant when you said I was overpaid and undeserving. The host couldn't do it. He couldn't maintain eye contact. He kept looking down at his note cards, at the audience, at anything except Mark's face. That's what I thought, Mark said quietly. You can dish it out, but you can't defend it when someone calls you on it. The audience was completely riveted. This was better than any scripted drama they'd ever seen. You know what the saddest part is? Mark continued. You actually have talent. You're funny when you're not being cruel. You could use this platform to lift people up, to celebrate their achievements, to make people feel good about themselves. Instead, you choose to punch down. Kimmel finally looked up, and there was something different in his eyes. Maybe it was shame, maybe it was anger, but whatever it was, it made him desperate. You think you're so much better than me? Kimmel snapped, his mask finally slipping completely. You think because you've made some action movies that makes you some kind of saint? Everyone knows about your past, Mark. Everyone knows you were a thug before you were an actor." The studio went dead quiet. Even the cameras seemed to stop moving. Mark's expression didn't change, but something cold and dangerous flashed in his eyes. "There it is," Mark said softly. "There's the real Jimmy Kimmel. When you can't win with comedy, you go straight for the personal attacks." Kimmel realized immediately that he'd made a terrible mistake, but it was too late. The words were out there. "Mark, I didn't mean." "Yes, you did," Mark said, his voice like ice. "You absolutely meant it. You've been waiting for the perfect moment to bring up my past, haven't you? You thought if you could make me angry enough, I'd give you the reaction you wanted." The host was completely panicking now. His career was imploding in real time. "That's not true. I would never." "You just did, Jimmy. On live television, in front of all these people." Mark stood up slowly, deliberately. The entire studio held its breath as he looked down at Jimmy Kimmel with a mixture of disappointment and controlled fury. "You want to talk about my past?" Mark's voice was quiet, but it carried to every corner of that silent studio. "Fine, let's talk about it. Yes, I made mistakes when I was young, serious mistakes that hurt people. And you know what I did about those mistakes, Jimmy?" Kimmel couldn't speak. He just sat there, frozen in his chair like a deer caught in headlights. "I own them," Mark continued, his voice growing stronger. "I didn't hide behind comedy or pretend they were just jokes. I faced the people I hurt. I apologized. I worked to make things right. I spent years learning how to be a better person." The power in Mark's words was devastating. Every sentence hit like a hammer blow to Kimmel's crumbling facade. "But what you just did, bringing up someone's past to hurt them on television, that's the kind of person you are right now, today, not 20 years ago, not when you were a stupid kid. Right now." Kimmel tried to interrupt, his voice cracking. "Mark, please. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." "You're sorry?" Mark's laugh was harsh and bitter. "You're sorry because you got caught showing your true colors on live television. You're sorry because your little plan backfired, and now everyone can see what kind of person you really are." The audience was completely silent. Even the crew members had stopped what they were doing to watch this historic confrontation unfold. "Do you know what the difference is between my past mistakes and what you just did?" Mark asked, leaning forward slightly. "When I hurt people, I was a confused kid from the streets who didn't know any better. You're a grown man with a platform that reaches millions of people, and you chose to use that platform to try to destroy someone." Kimmel looked like he was about to cry. His hands were shaking, his face was pale, and sweat was pouring down his forehead. "I didn't mean to destroy anyone," he whispered. "Then what did you mean to do?" Mark demanded. "What was your plan here, Jimmy? Make me look bad so you could get a few laughs? Make yourself feel superior by tearing down someone who actually worked their way up from nothing?" The host had no answer. He just sat there, completely defeated. "You want to know what's really pathetic?" Mark said, his voice filled with disgust. "I came here tonight to promote a movie that employs hundreds of people, good people who worked hard to create something entertaining. And you turned it into your personal therapy session where you get to feel better about yourself by attacking me." Mark shook his head and started removing his microphone. "Those people deserve better. The audience deserved better. And honestly, even you deserve better than what you just showed everyone tonight." Kimmel finally found his voice again, but it came out as a desperate plea. "Mark, please don't leave. We can fix this. We can edit it. We can." "Edit it?" Mark's eyes flashed with anger. "You want to cover this up? Pretend it never happened? That's your solution?" The host was grasping at straws now, trying anything to salvage the situation. "We could start over, do another interview." "There's not going to be another interview, Jimmy. There's not going to be a do-over. This is who you are. This is who you chose to be tonight in front of all these people." Mark finished removing his microphone and set it down on the coffee table between them. "You know what the saddest part about all this is?" he said, looking directly at Kimmel. "I actually used to respect you. I thought you were one of the good ones. I thought you understood what it meant to work hard and treat people with dignity." Kimmel was crying now, actual tears streaming down his face. But Mark wasn't finished. "But tonight you showed me that success doesn't change everyone for the better. Sometimes it just gives mean people a bigger platform to be cruel from." The silence in that studio was absolute. You could hear the air conditioning humming, the cameras quietly rolling, but not a single person made a sound. "I'm going to leave now," Mark said, straightening his jacket. "Not because I'm running away from this conversation, but because I have too much respect for myself to sit here and let you continue to disrespect me." He started walking toward the edge of the stage, then stopped and turned back. "And Jimmy, next time you want to attack someone's character, maybe make sure your own character can handle the scrutiny." Kimmel tried one last desperate attempt to stop him. "Mark, please. I'm begging you. Don't leave like this." Mark looked at him with something that might have been pity. "You should have thought about that before you decided to turn this into a hit piece. You made your choice. Now live with the consequences." And with that, Mark Wahlberg walked off the Jimmy Kimmel live stage, leaving behind a host whose career would never recover from those 34 seconds of pure arrogance that revealed his true nature to the world. The cameras kept rolling as Kimmel sat there alone, tears still streaming down his face, finally understanding that some lines should never be crossed and some people should never be underestimated. The audience sat in stunned silence, having witnessed not just a celebrity meltdown, but a masterclass in dignity, strength, and standing up for yourself when someone tries to tear you down. In those final moments, as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in, Jimmy Kimmel learned the hardest lesson of his career. Respect is earned, not demanded. And when you lose it on live television in front of millions of people, there's no taking it back.